Hi, I'm Paradigm, and I'm here to tell you about Seance number 3, in which I was a part of. And all 3 seances were coupled pretty close together. They were within a period of days to weeks apart, I believe. And so, yes, they were close together. So, in the third seance here, there was Frank and myself. There was also Kirsten, who brought her sister, we'll call her Lynn for now. I think Lynn is a pretty name. That's just why I thought of that name. Okay, so basically, in the second seance, the lights were out. I think as with the third seance, the lights were out, as it's within the second and first seances as well. And Frank, he brought his Bible again with him. And this time we sat in a circle holding hands, and Frank was to my left, Lynn was to my right, and I was facing Kirsten. And there was a blue candle in the middle of us and candles around us in the room. And Frank, he again pretended like he was reading something out of the Bible, but then his words sped up really quickly and he became incomprehensible, to the point where you could not understand what he was saying. And then he began to speak a very clear, definitive language, although I couldn't tell you what language it was and still wouldn't be able to. It was like no language I've ever heard before. It was some sort of tongue language. I couldn't really understand how he was doing it. I didn't think anyone could fake something like that. So it was just very odd, but it was definitely some very clear, defined language. So before the third seance, Frank had told me, whatever you do, don't open your eyes. This was his warning to me, or to us all. I'm not sure if he just told me or all of us. The other two. But I do remember him saying that. And then, so my eyes were closed, all of our eyes were closed, and we were holding hands. And then through my left hand, while he was speaking this really weird language, I felt like this movement in my hand, in my left hand, and it was like this pattern of movements that, it was like a set pattern of movements that kept on getting more pronounced, more and more pronounced, like waves of an ocean getting bigger and bigger, or something like that. It just, I could feel all this motion through my hands, holding hands with him. And so I just had to open my eyes to look at him. And it was like, it wasn't a conscious decision or anything. I just opened my eyes to see what was going on with him, and what I saw did not appear human to me. He was still speaking this weird language, and he was writhing back and forth really violently, just twisting and turning and contorting, and I really don't know exactly how to describe it. It looked like there were maybe these balls inside of his skin, like moving around in his neck and his arms and in his body, and just like these balls inside of his skin, or I didn't know if his bones were just like boiling inside of it. I don't know how to describe this, what I saw. You know, and the way he was contorting and everything, but these balls looked like they were inside of his skin, or I don't know, everything just looked really weird. And so I shut my eyes again, and then shortly thereafter, to my right, Lynn, she began to say, "Who hit me? Who hit me?" And then the seance was basically over. The candles had all been knocked over. I don't know how. There was blue candle wax dripping all over my foot. And then Frank turned to me and he said, "Did you see it?" Or did you, yeah, I think he said, "Did you see it?" And I said, or see him, he may have said. And I said, "See who?" And he said, "Satan. His face was in the flame of the candle." And apparently the flame had been blue, I think. And I lied. I said, "No, you told me to keep my eyes closed." And then so to my right, you know, Lynn, she was still saying, "Who hit me? Who hit me?" And I turned to her and then I said, "Well, nobody could have hit you because we were all holding hands." And she said, "But somebody hit me really hard on the back of my head." And then she started becoming hysterical and screaming, "Who hit me? Who hit me?" at the top of her lungs. Well, she wasn't screaming at the top of her lungs yet, but she was about to. She was getting louder and louder and more hysterical. But Frank turned to her and he said, "Well, are you wearing any jewelry?" And she said, "I'm wearing this ring." And she showed him a ring she was wearing on her finger. And he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you not to wear rings during a seance. It means that you're married to the devil." And then that's when she really got hysterical and she got up and tried to leave the room, and her little sister wouldn't let her out of the room, and she was holding the door closed. And I said, "Well, why won't you let her out, Kirsten?" And she said, "Because she's hysterical. Look at her. She's going to go out and tell everybody." She would go out and tell everyone and no one would believe her. And so that's why she was keeping her sister locked inside of the room. So that's about it for the third seance. And that's part one of my story, the barest of bones of it, and that's all for now. There's so much more to the story. I would really want someone to really know this whole story before making any judgments of anybody, and especially for those who want to say that these things did not happen. You're wrong. They did happen. You know, I can't be more sure of myself about my own reality, and especially when I've experienced so many things with other people who did have the same perceptions of reality at the same time. Thank you. And I guess you'll see me in my next part 2 of The Fine Line, The First Rose, coming up next time. Next time when I can figure out a way to tell part 2 of my story without telling you too much. Basically, I just wanted to share the very most important details. Okay, thank you.